Hey guys, this is Carrie, and in this video I wanted to show you a cool update to our All of the Lights project. I was messing around with it, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to do this to your All of the Lights project so you have these crazy visual effects. Don't worry about the click me button, that was based on a student question. Alright, so here we go. It actually turns out that it's super easy to do that, and rather than show you with the random one first, I'd like to show you with this one that has the clickable effects. So with this one, if you remember, the way that the last video tutorial showed you is when you click it, it basically, so there's a let me just summarize. There's a for each loop that assigns to each light an event listener, so that when you click it, it adds a class of lit to it, and that lit class has these styles. So basically, when we click it, if I do an inspect element on it, it's maybe easiest to see. If we click, let's say, this one right here, you can see that now it has a class of lit, and when it gets a class of lit, it turns pink. Here's the third one. So far, it's just a light. If we click it, it will get a class of lit, and now it's just pink. So to add these crazy cool styles, basically all we have to do, or all we need to do, is go into this lit class and add some additional properties. So one thing you might add, and I'm going to delete this in a second, but this is just an example that we're familiar with. You could make it so that when you click on it, it adds a 2-pixel solid red border to it. Let's see how this looks. I'll refresh the page, and now when we click it, it adds that border to it. I don't think that looks particularly good or interesting. So what I'm going to show you instead is a new CSS property called transform. So I've already got the page linked here, it looks like, but if I click it and then go to either this one, or we're most familiar with the W3 school, so maybe I'll click that one, we can see a variety of geometric transformations that might be visually interesting to look at. So the first one that we're going to look at is this rotate one. So if we add to the .lit class a transform of rotate, let's say 180 degrees. No, that's going to be boring with our square. Maybe 45 degrees is more exciting with the square. Let's see what happens. I'm going to close this down and we'll look at this. So now when we click it, we can see that it actually rotates 45 degrees, and that's pretty neat. If you want to, you can actually test out a variety of these transform properties one at a time. The way you can do that is, we're going to turn this into a comment. So if you're anywhere on this line with your cursor, and you press on your Mac Command/, or you type in these symbols before and after, slash, asterisk, asterisk, slash, it'll make the text appear green, which is called a comment, and that means that the computer doesn't actually process this line of code. So we can now add in another transform property, and this one we won't put in a comment, so this one will actually get red. And we can try the scale one out, and we put two numbers, an X scale and a Y scale. And I'm going to make them the same to start. Let's see what happens. So now when we click on these, it kind of zooms in on those boxes because the scale factor, if you remember from geometry, is 1.5 for both directions. You could also make the directions different. So maybe what would be interesting is let's make this one, the X direction, 0.5, so it will shrink to half its size, and then it will grow by 150% of its size for the Y direction. So you can see that this is warping it, which is kind of cool. And lastly, let me comment this one out. So rotations, dilations, from geometry class you might think about a translation. And I'm going to scroll down here and look. Oh, look, there's a translate. Awesome. I don't see a reflect here, which is interesting, but let's use our translate one. So translate, and then it looks like we have to specify how much we're translating the X and how much we're translating in the Y direction, kind of like we did in geometry class in freshman or sophomore year. So maybe let's say, I don't know, 10 pixels and 50 pixels. Refreshing this, It's kind of cool when we click them now, they pop out of their location. Maybe that would be cool with some other effect. But I'm going to comment this one out, and then what I'm going to show you is, I think the most impressive visual effects you can get here are when you combine different transformations. So I'm going to do a rotate, something crazy like 720 degrees. And the way you do multiple translations is instead of putting a semicolon here, you just list them out. I'm also going to make the boxes shrink to half in both dimensions, and I am going to translate. So I'm choosing to use all three of the possible transformations here. I don't know, let me stick with, no, let me do something less, 5 pixels and 10 pixels. So now we've got 1, 2, 3 transformations that are all being applied whenever we click. So let's see what happens. Whoa, that's really cool. All right, I think that's pretty neat for this clicking one. But I imagine that this could be even more impressive for that one that animates. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste this transformation thing, and I'm going to add it into the random one. So don't worry about this. This is for that student question. I'm going to delete all the transformations that I've had for myself before. You didn't add a box shadow, so let me delete that as well. And what you can do is you can just add into this .lit class here the same way as you did before this transformation. And this one works exactly the same, except instead of waiting to be clicked, this one uses that set interval thing to randomly apply the lit class to lights. So here's what it looks like if we randomly apply those over time. It's pretty psychedelic, I think, and pretty awesome. You can mess around with the numbers to make these effects look totally different. So maybe a different rotation would be interesting. Let's see how that looks instead. I think this will look pretty similar. Oh, wow, that's even more wild because it's like slow and like kind of, it looks like the transformations sort of pulse. Now the reason why these transformations are happening over time is because we added this transition property. So, we added this transition property. So each of the lights has a transition of 1 second. So it's going to take 1 second to apply these transformations. And that's why these are animated transformations. So hopefully you can mess around with these numbers and get some pretty cool effects. I look forward to seeing what you guys will accomplish.